Hey everyone, Z Slayer Dre here, and today I wanted to talk about my first year with the Switch, and my thoughts on the console, the games, and just Nintendo in general. So I want to just start off. I absolutely love the console. It actually might end up being one of my favorite consoles of all time. We'll have to see what games come out over the next few years, but so far, very, very good. One of the biggest surprises for me with it has actually been the portability. Something I really didn't think I would use, but just having something of this power that's portable, it's great for any occasion. Even not just going outside, just being able to play it anywhere in your house that you want to play, and you can play any game on the go. It's great, and it adds a novelty to some older games that you might want to replay. You can just play them anywhere. And it's a little on the weaker side compared to some of the other consoles, but there's been some really tremendous ports, especially like Witcher 3 coming out on there. I would have never thought that would be able to be ported over to the Switch, but I know I haven't played it myself. I've heard the frame rate and resolution is a little iffy, but I mean they did get it on there, so it was tremendous work by CD Projekt Red. Yeah, I mean, like I said, pretty much about the console, very few complaints. The only really main one I have is it's very uncomfortable to hold when in handheld mode. I have looked it up online. You can get some grips that kind of make it kind of like a 360 controller style for your hands, which I imagine is much more comfortable. I had the same problem with the 3DS. It actually hurt my hand just playing that so much, and I had to get the same thing, the console grip for it. Made it a lot better. Something really should just come standard. It's just been something with her handhelds for a while, just very, very uncomfortable designs, and I have no idea why. Even the main controller that you get, where you put the two Joy-Cons in, very uncomfortable. You're pretty much required to get the Pro controller, which is very expensive. As I mentioned earlier, it is definitely weaker compared to the other consoles, but they've really made up for it by using stylized art, like Breath of the Wild, a lot of self shading, and it looks really great, especially with the Mario games, Smash Brothers. Smash Brothers actually looks better than it has any right to look. I believe that's 60 frames a second to a 1080p, which is just incredible, especially when you see some of the other games that look actually worse and run at a lower frame rate. It's insane that they were able to get to do that, but I'm sure they have like their complete A team on that. So. But yeah, there's definitely been some issues with frame rate in most games. Actually, I don't think I've seen a single drop in Smash Brothers yet. I'm sure it does happen, but pretty much every game other than that, I've seen massive frame rate drops. They'll get better as time goes on with the console, I guess. And I'm sure it's difficult for some developers to go from doing mostly like 3DS games where really, really behind the times to like a full HD console. So it's just a learning process that they're going to have to go through, and they'll get better. I'm sure some of the later in the Switch's life cycle, some of the games will look much better and run better. At least hopefully. We'll see what happens. But yeah, overall console is just it's great. The downsides are very minor compared to the upsides, so that's great. And I think it's probably I think it's the best Nintendo system they've had, maybe ever. But, although I did like the SNES. But, so now we've talked about the console, I do want to go over some of the games, so there's a couple things. So when it comes to the first party games, they've all been pretty much, they have like, kind of a standard of quality. Not necessarily how good the game is, but they all pretty much look pretty great for what they are, considering the system they're on. They run for the most part well, other than like certain areas, and they typically don't have any bugs or glitches. Really, I've can't really think of many that I've seen on the first party games. It's been incredible when you see so many like third party developers, and even like some of the Sony stuff is pretty good, but a lot of third party developers that just released these buggy, broken games is something you really don't see from Nintendo, except for one game, and I think we all know what that one is. But yeah, overall, the games have a pretty good quality. I think some of them are a bit overrated, or very overrated, but even the ones that are overrated they're decent games. They're not bad, So when you buy a Nintendo game, you do have a reasonable expectation of what quality it will be. You're not gonna just, roll the dice when you're getting a AAA game. Is it gonna work? Is it gonna be buggy, glitchy? So it is nice to have that comfort when you're buying, or reliability when you're buying the game, or a game, rather. But the one we do need to talk about is Pokemon Sword and Shield. Technically, I guess it's a second-party game. From what I've gathered, Nintendo is a majority stakeholder in Pokemon because they own all three. Like, you got the Pokemon Company, Game Freak, Nintendo, and Creatures all own a third of it. But I think Nintendo owns part of Creatures, so they actually technically do own, or they're majority stakeholder in Pokemon. So I do I mean, they all have to share the blame for it. Without being in their boardroom meetings or on the inside, how do it's impossible to say what happened. But from what I gathered, they needed a game for holiday 2019, and Pokemon was going to be that game, whether it was ready or not, and it was not ready. And it's really sad how bad. I mean, Pokemon has definitely had some issues the past few releases, and it's been a steady decline. But this was not ready to be released, and I mean, I guess you got to blame both Game Freak and Nintendo. I guess Creatures and they do some of the 3D animation. I don't think they're as involved as the other ones, at least from what I've read. I'm not, who knows. It's really disappointing to see that they felt like that's okay. From what I've gathered, they seem to be, if it's a big release, they don't care. It will get released no matter what, whatever state it's in. Usually they seem to get it up to at least a good enough quality. But if it's a lower quality or not as big a selling title, because I know Metroid Prime is a big one, but it's not as big as Pokemon, obviously. So they were fine delaying that one until it was, they said the quality wasn't good enough. They transferred it over to another developer, and they're gonna release it when they feel the quality is good. That's great, but the thing is, they didn't do that for Pokemon, even though the quality was terrible. So, I mean, it worked for them. It's, by all means, it seems like it sold incredibly well. It helped them move a ton of Switches, so it doesn't really, unfortunately, you can just sell things with the name alone. It doesn't really matter about quality. So I really hope this isn't a trend, but there are some stuff from other areas of gaming that seem to be kind of like seeping into Nintendo. So, like I said, most of the games have been great, especially Fire Emblem. I think it's hands down the best game on the Switch. That was a huge surprise to me. I've never played a Fire Emblem game before, and I know a lot of people have felt this way, and it just blew me away. And even that seems like it had kind of a trouble to development time. That one was actually delayed too, I think. And some of the free updates have definitely fleshed it out, but as good as it is, it definitely needed more time in the oven. I think it needed another year of development time to be ready. But it was still great despite its flaws, while Pokemon was not good, and just from the ground up, it was not a good, well-made game. Fire Emblem, they seem to have played some of the older games now. They seem to just improve on their formula, every game, changing just a little bit, quality of life stuff that Pokemon doesn't really seem to want to do. They do quality of life stuff, but not, it just doesn't work out as well as what Intelligent Systems has been able to do with Fire Emblem. So the game's mostly very good. Pretty happy with it. They're actually at the base worst, other than Pokemon, at worst they're mediocre games, which it can be okay, So, but the biggest issue though with the games has been the DLC. Across the board, every DLC I've bought has been terrible. Maybe not in quality, but in its terms of value, some of them add nothing to the game. If a DLC should be an expansion. I grew up in a time where you bought expansions for games, they did well, and if they did well, they sold expansions that enhanced the game and added more story content. These Nintendo ones, you might get a game mode that should have been part of the game, the base game, sold to you as DLC. So it feels like some stuff games might get rushed out without some features, and then they just sell them as DLC. I don't like that. Like in Marvel Ultimate Alliance, a game which I very much enjoy, they had a horrible roster. They had some good characters, but a lot of ones that just weren't very good. But the DLC add a lot of the ones I do want, a lot of characters I want, so it feels like they're held ransom through DLC. And the DLC doesn't really add any content, it's just repurposed content over and over and over again. It's definitely fun, but the base game, the story wasn't very long, so they really stretched that content. I mean, it's beyond stretched. It's just the same thing over and over. If the main story had been longer, I think it would have been okay. Or even, each DLC should add like maybe 2 chapters or something like that, and make it $30 instead of $20. I guess they say there's going to be story content in the third one, but I think they actually consider this Gauntlet stuff, which is reused content, story content, so it remains to be seen. I think Breath of the Wild one was very disappointing DLC. I mean, really just a couple items and a few modes for it should have been something story related, or maybe a couple huge dungeons. I know they're like the mini dungeons, but it was not worth it. Smash Brothers, same thing. And I guess you have to buy the Piranha Plant separately now. Just terrible DLC practices, really, really disappointing. And it kind of, no, the problem is you can say that other companies are kind of the same thing. It's the terrible state we're at in gaming, but the thing is, Nintendo is viewed very highly, and they don't necessarily deserve that praise in some areas. The DLC is just as bad as other companies. It might not have loot boxes, but they're going down a slippery slope, because I know the mobile games now are horrific. Some of the worst as far as terms of monetization goes. I mean, whether as bad as the DLC you're getting, I really, really hope they don't go down that road of loot boxes and tons of mini DLC for just like stupid little items, which actually Smash Brothers does do. So they've already done that with Smash Brothers, and it's not included in the season pass. So, or they call it the fighter pass. So all that stuff should have been included, and you shouldn't have to buy the Piranha Plant separately for $5. It's insane. I guess it was free for a certain amount of time, but if you buy it now, you don't get it for free, which or when you buy the pass, which is just ridiculous. But I don't want to get too negative here. Like I said, overall, very happy with the Switch, happy with the games, but there's some very concerning issues in certain areas that I'm a little worried about. If this is as bad as it gets, I can begrudgingly accept it, but if it gets any worse than this, it's gonna get kind of ugly. But we'll see. So I've touched a little bit on Nintendo themselves, but overall, Nintendo seems to be very, very concerned about protecting their image, more so than pretty much any other company. And they definitely seem to say one thing and then do other things. Like I said, with the Metroid Prime being delayed, but Pokemon not being delayed. So they'll do the right thing when it's not when it doesn't cost them a ton of money. But if a ton of money is on the line, they'll do whatever they have to get the money, like most of their corporations, which sucks. But the thing is, you can't have this perfect, pristine reputation and then still do all this stuff. It doesn't work that way. So like I said, the DLCs have been bad, and then the other thing is the pricing of the games. So like Pokemon, the Let's Go games, I actually really enjoyed them. They're a remake of a very good game. They were as low effort as possible. They put as little time and effort into it as they could, which is really disappointing. But like, at the end of the day, they were remakes of very good games, so they were fun to play. I liked having some new mechanics in the games. I know they're not universally praised, but I thought they were fun, or at least for in a spin-off game, kind of. But they charged $60 for it, and I think it was $100 if you get the stupid Pokeball thing to get Mew. Insane, way overpriced. This should have been a $30 game. I mean, even $40 would have been kind of okay, but yeah, way overpriced. The same thing with the remake of Link's Awakening. It was a great Game Boy game, maybe one of the best ones, but a $60 full console experience, I'm sorry, no, it is not worth that. That is a $20 to $30 game max. Fun game, good game, and I know it costs money to develop it, but games have evolved so much since then, and it's still fun, but it doesn't compare to some of the other stuff that's come out over the years. So very, very overpriced. But they really know how to charge for nostalgia better than most other companies. And they have this whole thing. So obviously, and the games don't get discounted really either. You can get the physical copies for a little bit cheaper, sometimes like 50, maybe 40, but mostly 50 is from what I've seen. Even like when they go on sale, it's usually for $40, and they don't happen that often. So very, very overpriced, and it's not like you can just wait till it goes down in price to the price point that you think it's acceptable. You're really not. You're going to be waiting forever. It's just not going to happen. And I guess they have this idea where when you pay for something, if you pay full price, you're more likely to respect it, kind of idea, which it works. And they keep value too. You can't even really buy used copies for much cheaper. Some of them are only like $5 cheaper used than new, so might as well just buy the new one. And then you have to figure out the price of the DLC too, if you want to get that, which you usually do need to get the DLC to make it a complete game. So you get the $6 game. It's just the starter pack, so it's a little disappointing. Something I it's supply and demands. They exploit people's nostalgia. They doing it very well. I mean, they're making a ton of money, even though I don't think the business practices are that great. I don't see that changing, unfortunately. It probably just gonna get worse and worse. But they're yeah. So I mean, we've seen it with other companies. Time will tell what Nintendo decides to do, but hopefully they get a little better. And the last thing I do want to touch on is online. Terrible. It's only $20. It's not even worth that. It should be free for what it is. The SNES games and SNES games. I mean, I've played the ones I want to play before. I have the Super Nintendo Mini, which has all the games I'd ever want to play on that system. So those are basically worthless for me at this point. You should be able to just buy the games, honestly, the ones you want for a couple bucks a piece. It's insane. No, if they start doing like GameCube games, maybe a couple Wii ones, I talked about that in another video, that would be awesome. I want to see that, but right now, not worth it. And the actual online portion of games has been terrible. The Pokemon one implementation, it's like the worst I've ever seen. I've had actually better experiences back in the day with my 56K modem playing Baldur's Gate Online and Age of Empires 2. Than I have playing Pokemon Online. It's atrocious. Same thing with the Marvel Ultimate Alliance. It was implemented horribly. It's really laggy. I haven't played Smash Brothers yet, but I've heard it's a nightmare. And I feel like that's kind of the main draw of it. I mean, it has a single player thing, but mostly you want to play with people online. That's kind of the thing. I just got it. I'm playing through the single player now, but once I'm done with that, I want to do online battles, and I hope it works, but we'll see. And for Fire Emblem Three Houses, a game I love, I didn't have the online when I played through the first playthrough, and when I got it, I had it on my third playthrough. I had the online, and it helps you out so much, and it's so little. It's these little petty things that should not cost money to get. It really exploitative. Don't like it. I know it was mostly negative, but like I said, overall, the system itself is great, and I love it. I do hope, like I said, there's some frame rate issues, but I hope companies can learn how to, properly optimize stuff for the system over time, which usually is what happens, or it goes the other way and it gets worse by the end of their life cycle. Like stuff with the PlayStation right now, the new games are terrible, but that's just third-party stuff. So the first-party stuff is usually pretty good. So yeah, like I said, system great, games mostly good. Albeit the DLC issues, and then Nintendo itself, I think they're on a very slippery slope, and hope they can clean up their act, but I don't see it happening. Unfortunately, it seems to happen with all companies. They start off great, and then over time they just kind of go downhill with their business practices. But Nintendo's kind of held off longer than others, so we'll see. If they can keep that mobile stuff in the mobile market, that would be great. And if they can, improve their DLCs, I'm fine with the DLCs as long as they're worth it, but they feel like just cut out portions of the game that are sold back to you. So making the real cost of most games, $80 to $90, they're not $60. So, and if you get on sale, it's still paying $70 or $80. So, yeah. So like I said, overall great system. needs improvement in some areas though. So I want to know how other people feel about the Switch. Are you okay with Nintendo's business practices? Do you like the games? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to hear more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.